It's time. It's time for me to admit my secret sauce. My guru is a tree. Now I know what you're probably thinking, that this is the hippiest stuff you've ever heard, and you may be right. But after spending hours of time meditating and being with this one specific tree, I cannot in good conscience deny what kind of profound effect it's had. When I'm around this tree, there is the distinct heightening of awareness, a felt unification and concentration of mind, a feeling of harmonization with breath and body. Spending time with my back against its trunk oftentimes opens up energetic channels around the heart where feelings of love, happiness, compassion, and even bliss arise. I've cried, laughed, had Buddha brain, and felt deep intuitive insights arise by sharing space with this tree. Now I don't want it to sound too outlandish. These feelings and augmentations of perception are subtle. In fact, they're barely detectable unless I start intentionally stabilizing attention on the energy of the surrounding space and any slight changes in my internal state. AKA, unless I'm meditating or meditative, I probably wouldn't notice any changes. Therefore, I believe it's because of my meditation practice that I'm able to experience any of this at all. In this video, I'd like to share a bit about this wonderful teacher, plant consciousness, and the subtle levels of reality we can begin to open up to as a result of our spiritual practice. I'd like to provide an invitation to the possibility of learning from masters who may not necessarily possess traditional sentience or what we consider awareness at all. I hope you enjoy. One of the very interesting things that starts to happen as we go deeper into meditation practice is that we start to be able to sensitize ourselves to very subtle forms of energy, such that when we're in certain locations, such as when we're in nature, or perhaps when we're in a living room with family members who we don't really resonate with, you start to pick up on certain vibes. And I know this sounds very hippy-dippy, maybe mystical, schmystical, maybe a little new agey, but it's the only way I can describe it, which is that the more sensitive that we become in our meditation practice, the more sensitive that we become to the energies that are around us. And so in my case, one of the energies that I became sensitive to after a lot of meditation was this tree that is behind me. What's interesting is that this tree, it has served as a spiritual teacher, as a guru, which I know, again, sounds really, really hippie, but truly, when I'm with this tree, this subtle energy that I'm speaking of, I pick up on it, and I don't really have any explanation for it other than my level of consciousness seems to be elevated, expanded when I'm around this tree. My mind is more easily concentrated. My awareness is more expansive. I feel more in touch with my intuition. I feel more in touch with my higher self, so to speak, when I'm with this tree. I've had multiple insights being around this thing, and actually the first meditation retreat that I went on, I had a vision of that retreat while meditating under this tree. It was like I was shot with this intuitive pull to go on a retreat. So why do I say all this? Well, I say this because when we get very serious, very rigorous with our practice, you start to be able to learn from any situation, from any teacher, from any environment, from any individual. Everyone starts to become a teacher in a different sort of way because you are able to be more sensitive to the energy that these people are giving off, essentially. You'll start to be able to intuitively understand on a perceptual level, not an intellectual level with your mind necessarily, not sort of like a knowledge-based thing, but an energetic, full-body energy thing. You'll start to be able to perceive who you need to be around, who you don't need to be around, whether an environment is good for you, whether an environment is bad for you to continue to be around. In this instance, I personally felt that this tree was a good being to be around. When we think about what it is, like what a plant is doing all day, every day, it's plants are meditating. They're sitting down in silence and stillness and breathing. So you may find that there are certain locations in nature that really just resonate with you. Certain locations might resonate with you more than others. And so I would encourage you to try to find these locations, to find these teachers, basically, that are not human, that exist at a different plane of consciousness than what a human normally operates within. In my own experience, there is something profound about being able to connect with a being, whether that being is a plant or a tree or an animal. There's something profound about being able to connect with energies that are not sentient in terms of what humans are sentient with or have. But I think that this availability is only an option when we are able to open up and see very deeply into the nature of our own experience, when we're able to really tap into how these different forms of energy affect us emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically even. Like I said, there's something profound about being able to connect with these beings, but it requires a very sensitive awareness, a very sensitive consciousness, which is where meditation practice comes in. But this is why I talk about meditation so much on my channel, because this is not something that needs to be taken on as a theory or a conceptual idea, but try to ground this in your experience, try to ground this in your direct experience. But the only way to do that is through practice, is through meditation, is through the sensitizing of your awareness, of your attention, of the embodiment, of being able to be embodied within your own body, being able to be sensitive to your experience in all of its forms. Like I said, man, like this tree has truly opened up my mind to a lot of different possibilities. I've had a lot of intuitive insights, a lot of just general insights about my life being with this thing. I've felt feelings of love. I felt supported. I have felt encouraged to keep on my own path when I'm around this thing. And, you know, perhaps it's all in my head, but one of the things that we start to realize through deep practice is that in the head, in the mind, is a distinction that starts to fall away. When the sense of separation with the world, with the sense of separation between self and other continually begins to dissolve through practice, these sorts of distinctions start to blur. And so this one distinction between me and the tree, in this case, it has blurred in my experience. And so, yes, perhaps it's all in my head, but to a large extent, all of reality is all in our heads. So, I don't know. I'll let you connect the dots with that one. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say, man. I just want to invite you to the possibility that there are other ways to connect with reality. There are other ways of gathering information from the world besides just conversing with someone through speech. There are masters and teachers that are not human that we can connect with, whether those are spirits, perhaps, or whether those are plants or trees in nature. I would just say be open to that possibility. The last thing that I'd like to say is that, as strange as this may sound on the surface, we should note that consciousness is still the biggest mystery of the universe. We have zero scientific explanation of its origins, how it's created, or the precise causal interaction it has with the brain, and yet we walk around with it every single day. I believe the best way to understand consciousness is to study it directly, though, which is only possible by studying experience directly. As we practice this studying, the very fabric of the studied, aka consciousness, begins to change, transform, open up, and sensitize. As this opening takes place, radical new possibilities start to open up as well. One such possibility is the ability to start to perceive subtler frequencies or vibrations of experience which may not have been available at the beginning of our path. Overall, I wish you well and hope that you can find masters and guides in all corners of life.